In this video I'm going to show you how to harvest some amazing fresh rosemary from your garden and cook it up with some nuts and some maple syrup and make some really delicious healthy snacks that you can keep in your fridge and be ready to eat all week long. What a treat! Hello and welcome to Growing Frugal on this very windy end of May day. On this channel I post videos every Friday about growing food, cooking food and learning to live a lower cost life. So join me here if this appeals to you. And today we're going to be roasting up some nuts with rosemary and they're amazing. I think you'll like them. So enjoy the video and give it a go. So here we've got a rosemary I've been growing for a couple of years. I've killed many a rosemary plant in my time, so the secret is to not cut it back too hard, so not to cut back into what's called the woody growth. I tend to use as a guide that if I can't cut it with my little snippers, these are just like mini secateurs called snippers, then I'm cutting it too far down. So I'm going to take this one here and hopefully you can see that the stalk here is much lighter in colour and it's more bendy and it looks fine for cutting. So I'm above the woody area and I'm just going to snip it out like that. And I've got quite a long branch of rosemary there, and that's ready to go for our rosemary roasted nuts. Now we're back inside and we're going to take that lovely rosemary and make some rosemary roasted almond and cashews. And the first step is really simple, which is to get your oven on. So we're going to be roasting these nuts gently. So set your oven to 170 degrees, which is 325 Fahrenheit or gas mark 3, and let that be heating up as we do the next step. And now for this really simple recipe, we've just got a very small number of ingredients, including that lovely rosemary, of course. You can make these in any proportions you want, but today I'm going to make enough to fit in a Kilner jar here that sits nicely in the fridge. So I've got about 150 grams of organic almonds and 150 grams of cashews. So I'm keeping them in approximate proportion, but that really doesn't matter, and you can use other nuts with this too, by the way. Macadamias are amazing. So we've got altogether about 300 grams of nuts to fit in my container. Then we've got about a dessert spoon of olive oil. We've got 2 dessert spoons of maple syrup, and we've got some sea salt here. And now I've got Maldon smoked sea salt today. That's purely because I've run out of the ordinary sea salt. So this is a bit of an experiment, but I love this smoked sea salt. So any salt you like, and also some black pepper. And then I've got quite a lot of rosemary here because I really love the flavour of rosemary. But if you haven't got your own and you've got a smaller kind of pack from a shop, you'd have plenty with maybe 2 of these sprigs would be enough to give it a flavour. So that's our ingredients. It's as simple as that. It's some nuts, some oil, some maple syrup and some seasoning, and of course the rosemary. So the next step of the video is just to get a tray ready to be roasting your nuts. You can use a flat baking sheet, or here I'm using my roasting tray and I've lined it with a bit of parchment paper. Just very simply pour in your nuts. And then take some of your rosemary and just pop the sprigs in with the nuts. And now I'm just going to put this into the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes, and I'm going to keep a very close eye on them because I don't want them to over roast. And then we'll get on with the next step while they're roasting. So I'm just going to, first I'm going to mix the olive oil and the maple syrup together, just give them a little whisk to combine them. And you may just, So in the next stage, I'm going to replace the rosemary I've been roasting in the oven with some fresher sprigs. So we're just going to chop this rosemary quite small and just give them a final few minutes in the oven. So there we go, they've had their first roast and you can see the rosemary's got all toasted off here. So I'm going to take these out and get those composted. They smell amazing. And the nuts are just nicely roasted very gently then, just starting to change colour. So now it's just time for the final stage, really simple. So I'm just going to take the maple syrup and olive oil and pour that onto my tray and get the nuts and get every ounce out of here. Good spatula is your friend, and give the nuts a lovely toss in this mixture. And then spread out the nuts into a single layer. And then we're going to season with some pepper. Just sprinkling it from up high. Again, to your taste. Quite like the heat of the pepper on these. Makes them a really savoury snack. And put on some of this sea salt. And then finally, going to sprinkle over some of the chopped rosemary for that final couple of minutes back in the oven. And I'm going to save a small amount just to put in the jar so they're nice and fresh smelling. That's it. Now we're going to put them back in the oven, still at exactly the same temperature, and we're just going to put them in for probably 3 to 5 minutes, but keeping a really close eye on them. And that's the nuts all done. Look at those. Don't they look amazing? And it's as simple as that, but as you can see, a few nuts can become something really quite special when you add fresh herbs from the garden to it. And these can be served up as an appetizer at a dinner party, as well as being kept in the fridge for midnight snacks. So the final stage of this requires restraint. These are absolutely boiling hot, and please don't try and put one in your mouth to taste them until they've cooled down, because that maple syrup and oil together really heats things up. So these nuts are all cooled down now, and they've soaked up all of that lovely maple syrup and oil and seasoning. So all we have to do now is put them to store. Now they're nicely cool. I'm going to drop the remains of that fresh rosemary into the jar just to keep the smell really kind of in there. And then all we need to do is jar these up. And that's the beautiful rosemary roasted almonds and cashews, all jarred up, and a little few left over, and I think these are called chef's treats. So there we go, something new to do with the rosemary that's growing in your garden, or maybe it's growing in someone else's garden. If you like the video, please remember to click like below and subscribe for weekly videos every Friday on the theme of growing food, cooking food and learning to live a lower cost life. Thank you.